My Hero Academia ended the other day, and I'm gonna be honest, I had no intentions of making a video about it whatsoever. One of my friends even asked me when I finished reading the final chapter if I was gonna make a video about it, and I just flat out said,
Oh, no, 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 hell no, no!
But what changed between then and now is the fact that I've seen so much discourse online about the final chapter of My Hero Academia. Between jokes, memes, people ranting about how bad it is, it's absolutely driving me crazy because I can't escape it no matter where I look. I'm either seeing it on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, somewhere, fucking carrier pigeon, somebody somewhere is ranting about how they hate this series in some form or capacity, and it is driving me insane because this ending is not bad. I would even go so far to say that it's good and a satisfying conclusion to the end of My Hero Academia. Which, before anyone wants to go, oh, this guy's just a My Hero Academia glazer who wants to just praise the show and ignore all of its flaws. No! I only finished My Hero Academia because I invested so many years into reading it, and I was like, you know what? I'm close to the end by now. I might as well finish it, especially since they said it was in the final arc for like 2 years.
So that was a fucking lie.
But I have a litany of problems with it. I hate the fact that All For One is so important by the end of the series and is still the mastermind behind everything that's going on. I think he should have died when him and All Might had their duke out way early on in the series. I really don't like the fact that almost all of the villains have some sort of redemption arc. I think that was completely unnecessary. I don't like the fact that the series takes place over the course of like 2 years at best. I hate the direction of the overall series past like the Gentle arc. I have a ton of problems with everything that's gone on in My Hero Academia, but the final chapter is not one of those issues at all. So I'm going to go over why I don't think this final chapter is bad and why a lot of the points that I've heard about why it's horrible and it's a terrible ending for the series is incorrect. So let's go. Now, this is very much just an over-dramatization that people have been using for laughs, but I have seen it a handful of times used to talk about a criticism for the final chapter and why it's bad, so that's why I'm bringing it up. So essentially what Deku says in the final chapter is that all of Class 1A can't get together because their schedules conflict with one another. But he doesn't say that they're not friends anymore, that they don't talk to each other anymore. Using my own life experience as an example, I met basically all of my friends between growing up in school, my hometown neighborhood, and going to high school and beyond. And we all live in different cities, different states, have conflicting work schedules, and it's very hard for all of us to assemble in one place at the same exact time. But we're all still friends and find ways to communicate with each other and stay in touch. So it's not that Deku doesn't have any friends anymore. It's just it's difficult for... Deku has a class. I think Class 1A is comprised of like 20 to 30 students. Yeah, I can imagine it's difficult to get 20 to 30 people to fit in the same exact location at the same exact time where all of their schedules perfectly line up. That's a little bit absurd. It's difficult to get a group of like 5 people to do that. Imagine doing it for like 20 to 30 people. That's absolutely insane. So no, it's not that Deku doesn't have any friends. It's just difficult for adults to assemble in the same place at the same time when they all have different craziness going on in their lives. So, like I said, this is mainly just a joke that I've seen people use for memes, but in rare instances, I have seen people bring this up as a genuine criticism, so that's why I figured I would bring it up here.
Oh, hell no!
After Deku fought Shigaraki and All For One prior to the time skip, he loses One For All due to that battle and has to retire from being a hero. So now, post-time skip, Deku is an instructor at UA. And I feel like a lot of people are ignoring that last part. I've seen so many people criticize the story and they're just like, oh, Deku's quirkless again. He stopped being a hero. He's depressed that he can't be a hero anymore. L story, horrible ending. And I'm just like, okay, but that really takes away all of the depth and meaning of everything else that Deku says and does in the final chapter. And I feel like you're oversimplifying it to simply be mad about the ending. I'm not saying you can't dislike it, because I have a friend who dislikes the fact that Deku ended up as a teacher because he feels like he didn't have enough of a last hurrah. To use All Might and All For One as a comparison, when those two had their fight earlier on in the series, All Might fighting All For One felt like a satisfying conclusion to his heroing career and him moving on to becoming something else in that industry. But he felt Deku didn't have enough of a last hurrah to really justify that. And I can completely understand that. But to just be like, oh, he's quirkless, he's not a hero, story's bad. I feel like that's not enough of a justification because you're not really taking into account everything that Deku says and does within the final chapter. Deku isn't unhappy being a teacher. Does he miss being a hero? Yes, he does. He does mention that in the chapter, but he doesn't hate being a teacher. I feel like people are missing that part. He's 100% content and enjoys being a teacher and guiding the students of tomorrow to become great heroes. I love that. That whole interaction between him and Eraserhead showcases what's going on there. And since I'm on the topic of Eraserhead, no one seems to have a problem that Eraserhead is a quirkless guy that is now an instructor at UA. No one has a problem with that. Yes, Eraserhead was an instructor at UA prior to losing his quirk, but now him and Deku are essentially the same. They're both quirkless and they're both teachers at UA. But I've not seen a single person complain that Eraserhead is a quirkless instructor, but when it comes to Deku, all of a sudden it's a problem. He can't be a quirkless instructor. He can't have saved the world and now retired because he lost his quirk and now he's guiding the next generation of heroes. Because the way I feel like people are taking this is that Deku is the same Deku that he was in the first chapter of the story. That Deku's like, I'm quirkless, I can't do anything, life is terrible, I'm a crybaby. That's not what he is anymore. If he was that version of Deku, he'd be alone in his room, a shut-in, crying his eyes out. That's not how he is now. Deku, despite not having his quirk, is still teaching students. He's happy being a teacher, showing them the way to become great heroes. And you can see the parallel with that when he meets the kid Dai. Dai is a kid who is essentially Deku of this new generation. He's a kid who grew up seeing the stories of All Might, Deku, Bakugo, Shoto, all of them fighting to save the world, and he wanted to become just like them. He even, just like Deku, states that he didn't really grow up like everyone else. Everyone else wants to be some kind of different form of hero in some specific hero industry, but he wants to save people. He wants to fight crime. And he feels like he's not cut out for it because his quirk isn't that strong. And they parallel the beginning of the series when All Might told Deku that he could be a hero, with Deku meeting Dai and telling him the same exact thing. If this was Chapter 1 Deku, he would not say that. He'd probably not think the guy could cut it either because he didn't believe he could cut it himself. So I feel like people saying like, oh, Deku just ends up the same way that he was in Chapter 1. That's not true. I feel like you're just nitpicking to be mad because you don't like the fact that it ended with him quirkless. Which again, there's nothing wrong with not liking the fact that he ended the story quirkless, but I feel like the problem is that you're just oversimplifying it and saying he's had no character growth, which actively isn't true. And I really don't like that that's how people feel. And being an instructor at UA is a very respectable position for him to have. Teaching students how to be heroes based off of his own experience is a really good ending. I'm perfectly fine with that. If the next thing I'm about to talk about didn't happen, I would have been perfectly fine. If this page right here was the end to my hero, I think I would have been like, you know what? Okay, I respect that. That's a good ending. I can understand how we got to this point. Even if you have complaints about them actually having this be the ending and getting to this point, I feel like just cutting out all the growth that Deku's had over the 430 chapter story that we've been going through and just being like, oh wow, the story ended with him being exactly the same way as he was in Chapter 1. That's not true, and it's just sapping any sort of nuance and depth that his character has throughout everything that's happened to him and everything that happened to him in this last chapter. So yeah, Deku just giving up, that's not exactly true. He didn't give up. Yes, he's quirkless. He doesn't fight crime anymore. I completely understand that. And I will bring up the other points about him. Why doesn't he just fight crime quirkless, just throw hands with people like the character Knuckle Duster? Or why doesn't he use support items? I'll get to that in the next section. But for what I'm saying here, I have no problems with him becoming a teacher at UA. I think that works perfectly fine for his character. I think it could have ended just there, and I would have been perfectly fine with it. And you are allowed to have complaints about it ending in this kind of way if you wanted Deku to remain the #1 hero, have a quirk, or, you know, fight quirkless, whatever. Like, I completely understand if there's different aspects as you wanted the story to end, but I think just saying that he just ends up same way he was at the beginning is a little bit oversimplification, and I don't think it's a proper way to really criticize the ending, because you're just cutting out a bunch of stuff that you want to be the way you want it so you can criticize it.
Go beyond! Plus!
Now, the last few pages of My Hero Academia shows that Deku receives a suit from All Might that was funded by Class 1A and developed by Hatsume that is essentially a new version of the mechanized quirk suit that All Might wore in his battle with All For One earlier on in the final arc. Now, if you're someone who hasn't been reading the manga, for starters, thanks for clicking on this video anyway. I don't know why you did, but I appreciate that. But if you don't know what's going on, earlier on in the series, All Might was given a mechanized suit that essentially emulated the abilities of quirks and used it to go toe-to-toe with All For One. And Deku is given a new version of this, tailored to what he was capable of doing. And All Might tells him that he deserves this because of everything that he's done and that he's earned this suit so that he can go back to being a hero. And a lot of people have problems with this because they feel that Deku could have just bought the suit himself, used other support items to be a hero, or he could have just gone full-on quirkless and still been a hero. And I understand those criticisms, but Deku couldn't do any of those things. For starters, in regards to the new suit, the suit was a super expensive thing that was made for All Might specifically in the past because he was the world's greatest hero and they thought they might need him to fight again. And then, in the future, they still say the suit was ridiculously expensive that all of Class 1A had to chip in to buy it, as well as Hatsume developing the suit herself in order for Deku to get it. So Deku couldn't just buy the suit and then just have his abilities back, especially because the suit that All Might wore was the first of its kind. It's not like it's a thing that's just readily available for anyone to just buy willy-nilly. It's not like that. It was a very rare item that got destroyed during that fight. So Deku getting his own suit like that is something that probably took a long-ass time for them to figure out and get prepared to give to him in the first place. Secondly, in regards to him just throwing hands with people or using other support items to fight, Deku's body is not like normal people's bodies. His body is barely hanging on by a thread. Throughout the course of the entire series, we see Deku time and time again destroy his body over and over again. By the time Deku gets to the final fight with Shigaraki, they mention that his body is literally being held together by the power of One For All and the support stuff that's inside of the suit that he's using. He can't physically keep himself up to par to fight with villains on a normal standpoint. So yeah, he could get a couple of support items or throw hands, but he can't really do that because he's not healthy enough to just do it. He's still got the scars and damage from when he went through all of those battles. He would need something that would help him be physically capable to fight in those fights now. So just being like, oh man, well Deku just gave up. He should have just went and run hands with people. No, he can't do that. He does not have the physicality to just do that. So I completely understand why he didn't just go and do that. Why he stopped being a hero, because he's not like Superman or anything. He's not like Knuckle Duster, who, like, even though Knuckle Duster is just a dude, Knuckle Duster is very physically capable of fighting people. So I completely understand why Deku didn't just do that. So I don't really agree with that criticism that, like, he should have just run out and been a hero anyway, just because, you know, well, he could do it. Because he can't. He's not physically capable of doing it like that. Yeah, sure, he's physically capable of, like, living, like, a normal life. But, like, there's a difference between living a normal life and then being a hero. It's like sports players. You know, when they get, like, a really bad injury and they can't play professionally anymore. Yeah, they can still live their normal life. They can still do things with their family and have fun. But, like, if they try and play ball again after tearing, like, an ACL or something, it's not going to work out for them. It's going to put them in immense pain. They can't just go and do it anymore because they were injured. That's what Deku is like. He's like a professional sports player that has torn an ACL and can't go back to the field anymore. That's where he's at by the end of this story. So them giving him the suit, I'm imagining, because they never really go into immense detail about what the suit can do, but basic enough what All Might's suit can do, it can basically put Deku back in his prime. It can support him and give him the abilities to fight like he used to, which I think is perfectly fine. And if you disagree with me with that, All Might beat All For One with a mechanized suit. So I don't want to hear that this suit can't do that, alright? All For One was the strongest villain in history. I don't want to hear that this mechanized suit can't bring Deku back, or at least close to what his prime was before he lost One For All, because that would sound absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I think it's perfectly reasonable for Deku to have stopped being a hero and then becoming a hero once again once he gets the suit. I don't think it's out of the blue that he couldn't buy the suit, that he didn't just become a hero without it or anything like that. I think it's perfectly reasonable how things ended up, and I think it's cool that he got the suit back, and, you know, it was because of his friends that loved him and believed that he should still be out there as a hero, despite him thinking that he's fine being a teacher. Again, he still liked being a teacher. I'm not saying he was depressed or anything, but what I am saying is that, you know, he was content with his life, but his friends were like, nah, bro, you one of us. You got to be out here in the streets throwing hands. And I think that's perfectly fine. I really like that as an ending. If you don't, well, you know, you're still not going to like it, but I hope I at least gave some sort of perspective on it. So yeah, that about really wraps up everything I have to say about this. Like I said, My Hero Academia is not devoid of problems. There are tons that you could complain about, tons that I've listed at the beginning of this video, but my point is this final chapter isn't clearly as cut and dry as a lot of people are making it out being, just saying, oh, Deku's quirkless again, he's working a normal 9 to 5, this story's bad. I feel like that's oversimplifying everything, and I hope that at the very least I was able to give you some insight onto the deeper meaning of the final chapter, so it just doesn't feel as cut and dry, in case you're someone who's just like seen the stuff online and wanted some more insight on it. And if you're someone who doesn't like the ending, you watch this video, I'm curious to know how you feel about it, if you still ended up hating it, if I managed to change your mind somehow, or if I just gave you some deeper perspective and you still disagree with how the story ended, but you can at least understand it and hate it maybe slightly less. You know, let me know how you feel about that in the comments down below. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. Really wasn't expecting I was going to have this much to say about it, since I wasn't going to make a video about My Hero in the first place, but here we are. So, with all that being said, I'm the innocent villain. Remember, folks, you're innocent until proven villainous, and I'll catch you in whatever the hell I do next.